Well, hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Welcome to the Joe Cioffi Show on this Monday, July the 15th, 2019. I've been gone for the last, 9 days, because I think the last live stream I did of length was back on the 4th of July, or perhaps even on the 3rd of July. Nonetheless, I'm back. We're back to normal. So this is usually the time when we do our longer live streams. We have Weather in 5, which we do in the morning hours to give you a quick rundown of what's going on, although that tends to be a little more focused to eastern Pennsylvania and out to southern New England. But if there are things going on in the broader case, we will address them. There are just a couple of things going on that we're going to be taking a look at tonight. First off, of course, over the weekend, we had Tropical Storm Barry, and there's a little bit of controversy with that, at least among some of the weather folks. It kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit when the Hurricane Center upgraded it briefly to a minimal hurricane at the point where the center was just about on land. And looking at it in terms of the structure on the satellite, it really it was probably, as described by one of my weather buddies, as one of the saddest looking hurricanes they've ever seen. It was done because of wind observations that were seen as the storm was coming ashore. I don't know. The Hurricane Center in their discussion pointed out that it didn't change anything in terms of the outlook, and that the main emphasis of Barry was going to be whatever rainfall that was going to be produced out of it. And I also saw a number of headlines by the various media suspects on how using words like catastrophic and just all this hyperbole, that here's the thing: when it is required to use that hyperbole, I'm all for it. I think we did that with Florence last year. And the message winds up getting lost because, at least in the case of Hurricane Florence, it was such an overemphasis on the wind, not by the Weather Service per se, or by the Hurricane Center, but by the usual media suspects, where the message about the heavy rain got lost in the sauce. And then, of course, the confusion just multiplies when there's controversy is made out of it. This was at best a minimal system, and it really was a strong tropical storm with some heavy rains. Then, of course, the implications that follow that, this has never happened before because this is all climate change related. And quite frankly, we need to, I guess, get used to the fact that every time it drizzles, it is going to be wrapped up in the hysteria of climate change. So just get, that conversation has been going on for quite a while, and it only seems to be getting worse over time. So God only knows where this is going to take us during this upcoming hurricane season. Those of you who are on here and have been on here for the last couple of years know that we take a very methodical, straightforward look at these things. We don't get involved in all that in the drama, in all the screaming and gnashing of teeth that goes on in the background. We just go with the weather and go with the flow. We're going to take a look, by the way, at the tropics going forward, because there are some things going on that I think are really important that may speak to where the season on the Atlantic side is headed over the next number of weeks. We're getting ready to move into August. In another couple of weeks, we'll be moving into the two peak months, August and September, and that stretch from the last week in July till the first 10 days of October, where you get this sort of burst of activity that happens on the Atlantic side. And we have some things going on with the El Nino that I think are worth addressing. So let's get going with respect to what's happening tonight. And for tomorrow. In the east, and particularly in the northeast and in the northern mid-Atlantic states, we are probably going to see probably what could be the hottest weather of the whole summer coming for the end of the week, and particularly this weekend, with temperatures that I think could get well up into the 90s, and maybe there'll be a few odd spots that'll hit the century mark. The humidity is going to be ridiculous, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It's summer, and of course, be prepared for the hysterics that will come with that. Summer weather happening in the month of July, just utterly groundbreaking. Okay, so here we go. Let's look at what's happening tonight, because we actually have quite a bit with respect to flood watches that are up, flash flood watches, because of the remnants of Barry, which seem to be playing itself out on the satellite and radar on there. By the way, quick hello. I see Kim Monaco's on tonight. Nice to see you on board. I know there are a few of the my Facebook top fans and, of course, Patreon members are on tonight, as well as Facebook supporters. So it's nice to see everybody on there. And, of course, big hellos to all the regulars, which I did say in the pre-show chat. Okay, so we've got flash flood watches up still for the lower and parts of the middle Mississippi Valley down to Louisiana. Remember, the threshold here for flooding now is pretty low because of the rains of the last couple of days and going back through the weekend. So it's not going to take much to send out some flash flood warnings in some odd, heavier thunderstorms. Although much of the heaviest rain, I think the worst of this, is probably past at this point. We also have in that dark red area up through Missouri and Kansas and on points northward into Iowa and Nebraska, that's excessive heat watches that have gone up as they're setting up for a round of hot temperatures up close to 100 and heat indices around 110, and nighttime lows in the 70s to around 80. Not exactly the pleasant weather. Also, we have a peppering of severe thunderstorm watches that are going on in parts of northern Minnesota, northwestern Wisconsin, back into western Nebraska, and over into eastern Wyoming and southeastern Kansas. And of course, when it comes to severe weather, you know the drill, folks. Just make sure you check, if you're watching this on a replay, to check your local National Weather Service forecast office for the latest on severe weather information. And you can find that by going to weather.gov. And here's the Storm Prediction Center's view tonight of what is happening. Marginal risk of severe weather from northeast Louisiana northeastward into southern Illinois and Indiana. And of course, that is related to the upper air feature that is what's left of Barry. We have slight risk of severe weather with a weather front that's dropping down into the northern plains and western lakes. So you've got a slight risk of severe weather up in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and also back in the western plains and extending back up into parts of Montana and Wyoming. Meanwhile, in the northern mid-Atlantic and northeast, it's as quiet, as calm as it gets in the summertime. No thunderstorm threat there. Just a general risk of scattered thunderstorms down through the rest of the mid-Atlantic, down into Florida and back through across the Gulf states, and also up the Rockies and into parts of the plains and into the Pacific Northwest. Now, rainfall, additional rainfall over the next 7 days. Now, it's not a whole lot, really. You have a couple of bullseye areas in parts of Arkansas, and I think much of this is front-end loaded, where we're seeing some 3 to 5 inch amounts in that small area that is centered in southwestern Arkansas. Generally, we're looking at 3/4 of an inch to an inch, inch and a half on up through the Ohio Valley and on also into parts of the Northeast. With the remnants of Barry coming eastward, usually when you have systems that go in west of the in the Gulf states, if they come up and into the west of the Appalachians, they usually are not big rain producers in the east unless there's some deep upper trough that gets involved and prolongs precip along the east coast, some kind of stalling front as the area moves eastward. That doesn't happen too often. If you're going to have a problem with remnant tropical systems, you're going to see that usually with storms that go east of the Appalachians, the ones that will impact the east coast. We also have some big rains forecast from thunderstorm activity in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and otherwise everywhere else just kind of looks sort of typical to me. Bone dry in the southwest and most of the west, bone dry across much of Texas and the southern plains, That's a switch for the southern plains anyway. And Florida looks like this time of year. So here's the satellite tonight. The signature of Barry, what's left of it, is pretty obvious. It's this kind of sprawling upper low that is creeping slowly northward. It's actually sandwiched in between two upper highs and a jet stream that's running along and just south of the Canadian border. So you've got a high out in the southwest, a high off the southeast coast in the upper atmosphere. You've got Barry circulation kind of sandwiched in between. And then you've got the northern part of the jet stream running from the northern plains across the Great Lakes and into the northeast. And it's separate from Barry, so waiting for something to come and just kind of push it eastward, which it will do in the next 48 hours or so. But when you look at what's on there with respect to the satellite, and you look at the radar tonight, the radar is far less impressive than what it was back not many days ago. And we'll show you here on the National Radar Loop. I'm going to bring it up right now. And there you have it. So the satellite, I think, is more impressive than the radar is. Now, you can see the twisting, the turning from the actual remnant circulation sitting in central Arkansas with some showers and some heavier downpours there. And then you've got these bands that are running through Mississippi and on up into southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and swinging across through western Kentucky. There's a big area of some heavier showers and downpours up from Louisville eastward, and in southeastern Ohio. There's a pretty decent patch of precip there. Extending the radar further south, there's some heavier thunderstorms in parts of southwest Louisiana and also in southern Mississippi and Alabama. But even though these bands are getting swept up and around the remnant circulation, it's hard to really separate them from what would be a typical day of showers and storms in parts of the Gulf states. And of course, in Florida, you've got your usual peppering of daytime showers and storms. I know Johnny Quest was telling me how he had a little bit of activity with some severe thunderstorms that moved through that little patch there that's in northwestern Virginia that's sliding southeastward. And then there's another one approaching now the West Virginia line. But that might be it after that swings eastward. We're going to keep an eye on that area that's out to the west of Kentucky to see what that does as it pushes east. And then, of course, you've got your showers and storms, that severe weather that's up through parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Pretty evident here at 6:12 Eastern Time. And we've got some activity scattered about in parts of Texas and throughout much of the Rockies from south to north. So the radar is doing what the radar does in the summertime. It gets busy in the afternoon and evening, tropical system notwithstanding. Okay, so what's happening is we are, at least here in the Northeast, looking at the latest surface map, and I think this is the latest. It should be from 2 o'clock this afternoon. Temperatures into the 80s, dew points in the 50s. You can't ask for much better. This is about as good as it's going to get over the next 8 days or so with respect to humidity, because from here on in, we're going to see that humidity creep up. And it's waiting for this warm front that is analyzed across Virginia into Ohio and Michigan. And of course, you jump to the other side of that front, and now you're seeing your dew points up into the 70s, particularly when you get into what's left of Barry, which actually, as of 5 o'clock, the Hurricane Center wrote its last advisory. It had kept it as a tropical depression up until now, but now it is, they're done with it, and WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, will take over. You can see there's a broad surface low that's analyzed here, and we've got the upper feature with it as well, triggering off those downpours. And by the way, you notice the temperatures inside of all of that, because of clouds, having a tough time getting out of the low and mid 70s in the middle of the afternoon. This is a little bit unusual, but that if you want to see cooler weather this time of year, this is probably the way you would do it, is to get a lot of cloud cover And then you head down further south, of course, it's typical saturated tropical moisture through Louisiana and Texas with dew points up into the low and mid 70s. So we're going to see a gradual transition here from this last shot of dry air that's in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states to the humidity, and then eventually, as we wring out what's left of Barry, we are going to bring in the heat. And I think the hottest weather is going to be this coming weekend with temperatures well up into the 90s. And I wouldn't really be shocked at all to see a couple of spots hit the 100-degree mark. So we'll take you through things. First off, with regards to Wednesday, and we'll see if we should have enough of the new GFS here to take you along. And we do. Okay, so here we are with tomorrow for Tuesday, a little more humid, still plenty of sun, much of the shower and thunderstorm activity, and I'll probably be better off if I use the radar rather than the total precip. But this is what the GFS thinks the radar is going to look like at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So you're going to see those showers and storms that are coming out from the remnants of Barry moving eastward into the Ohio Valley, and eventually by early Wednesday morning, we're seeing showers and storms into Ohio and western PA. Now, the showers that pop up in New Jersey, on the GFS at least, that's more the transition over to the tropical air mass. So that really is the warm front that is in play. So that may or may not be there, depending on how, which model you use. You can make an argument both ways that you could see some showers and storms as we go into that very warm, that hot, humid air that comes in for Wednesday. And then as we head into Wednesday evening, you've got this upper trough that's coming down from swinging out of the Great Lakes, and that's pulling the remnants of Barry up here. Honestly, the fact that we give this the name of the remnants of Barry is, it's a technicality in my view. I don't know that you're really going to notice much of a difference whether there was a tropical system, a former minimal hurricane. If you didn't know that, I don't know that you would notice the difference that much between that and a summertime weather front or upper trough coming through with some tropical air to work with. So there's nothing here to me that really stands out. And the fact that everything moves along is also a good plus because, okay, so you're going to get some heavier downpours and you may have some thunderstorms. It's July. Again, groundbreaking news. So here we go for Wednesday night into Thursday. And then as that trough kind of hangs around a little bit Thursday afternoon, we probably could see maybe another couple of showers or thunderstorms with that pop up. And then I think we're going to be done. It is a hot, humid flow for Friday and particularly for Saturday. Saturday, if you look carefully at the isobars here, and Reaver said he wanted me to make sure that I had the date and time up there for the GFS so you guys can know what we're looking at. If you look at the isobars here, the winds on Saturday are going to be from the west or west-northwest. That is a hot wind, and that's where we could see temperatures climb well up into the 90s. There's no sea breeze. There's no ocean impact at all. There's a minimal amount of cloud cover for a good part of the day, and all that heating might trigger off some scattered thunderstorms that could result going into Saturday evening. But Saturday, I think, is the day where we could see temperatures well up into the 90s. And we may see a repeat performance on Sunday until we get to Monday, because this is where a stronger front will finally get close and try to move through here on Monday. So the potential does exist, depending on what happens on Thursday, that we could wind up with 90-degree highs for some places. Might see it for 6 days in a row, possibly 7. Some may wind up seeing it a bit less. But the bottom line is that this could very well wind up being the hottest weather of the summer for some areas. I hate to say something like that. One of the things about the summertime is, we do have instances of temperatures going up to over 100 in New York City, for example, even into early September. So it still could wind up with another setup where we could see very hot and very humid conditions. But if this were a typical summer, it could very well be that the hottest weather is going to be this coming weekend. We'll see. We'll know that only in hindsight. But in terms of the overall pattern, there's your thunderstorm activity with the cold front for Monday, and that hopefully that should break the oppressive heat and the oppressive humidity. So we'll just have to deal with it until then. Now let's look at the upper air going forward, because this is very interesting to me as far as the way we keep seeing this jet stream pattern that just kind of repeats itself with the edge of the northern part of the jet stream over the northeast. So let me bring you, let's bring up the paint box at this point. Hang on one second, I'm going to set it up here. So I'm pulling up the jet stream for Friday night, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen here in a second. So give me a short moment here. Okay. All right, so here we go. Hang on, folks. You know, I just got back from vacation, so I'm a little bit out of whack here, just trying to get a handle on things. Okay, so here we go. I got the paint box up. So I put up the map here, the upper air jet stream map, and this is for Friday night, 8 p.m. on the new GFS. And one of the things that we've seen here for quite a while is this, you know, this jet stream pattern that the southern extent of the upper air westerly winds has been running very close to New York City, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And we get these periods where that jet pulls up a little bit to the north, it drops down a little bit to the south. Now, this is the first time that we're seeing this summer where the jet stream is going to pull up far enough north for a longer period of time to allow us to see some rather hot weather conditions. Now, in all of this, we also have right up here is a blocking high. So if we looked at, I'm not going to pull up the teleconnections, but I'm sure we probably have a negative NAO. But in the summertime, when you have a negative NAO under certain conditions, it actually means it can create hot weather conditions in parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. And then this is one of those instances. We have to wait for the pattern to just sort of correct itself a bit. We have an upper low, a rather strong upper low for this time of year sitting in Hudson's Bay. You do have a flow coming down from Canada. But again, that jet stream is the southern part of the westerly winds in the upper atmosphere lying just south of the Canadian border. So it's where that southern boundary is that you get these weather systems to move along. If you pull that jet stream up far enough north, you're not going to really see much impact from those weather systems moving along. So cold fronts have a tough time making it. The air masses from Canada have a tough time making it. And in the meantime, you know, you've got this east-west upper high that extends from the Atlantic straight westward into the southeast and back into Texas and into New Mexico. It's a flat upper high. You notice it's kind of laying there from east to west. It's not bulging up into the Northeast or up into the Great Lakes. So it's got this sort of flat look. So all we need is for something to come along and break that ridge and just kind of flatten it down. And in fact, when we move through the weekend, just move a couple of days into the weekend, I'm going to bring up the upper air jet stream map. Hang on one second here. There we go. So here's what it looks like for Sunday. So you see the change here from what we just had. So now, as we move into Sunday, we have the northern part of the jet stream beginning to flex a bit. And that allows for the southern part of those westerly winds to begin dropping further south. So it's a question of getting it far enough south so when you get a system to swing around there, it's going to push a cold front through. The upper high is starting to weaken here, okay? You've got one extension of it out in the Atlantic. You've got the other part of it down in the southwest. And the trough in the east is trying to kind of push down into that weakness that is in the middle. So the reason why I'm bringing attention to this is the fact that this pattern's been kind of dominating for quite a while. And it'll be interesting, in my view, to see if this holds as we get into late July and August in particular. Because if we keep seeing these troughs dropping in the east, you have to at least think about the possibility that when the tropics get going, and they will there be something, if you get something that takes a track far enough west, and gets far enough west, if you get these troughs that keep dropping into the eastern part of the United States, that's going to be important. And you'll notice here that we have, as we move into next week, we do have troughing here in the east, and it's actually rather significant. It's along the east coast, but it's significant, and a strong ridge building up in the west, in the Rockies, and pushing up into northern Canada. So the models keep wanting to show this idea that there's going to be troughing in the east. If and when we get some kind of tropical system to develop, that troughing in the east is going to be something that we're going to want to pay attention to. Now, remember, and I've said this many times, the east is a big place. We can see the trough along the east coast. We see the trough out to the west in the Ohio Valley. Or is it just off the east coast? Because those positions are important. In a case like this, for example, if you had a tropical system, say in the Bahamas, with a trough like this in the east, it would probably turn up and then out northeastward in response to those southwest winds that you see from South Carolina out toward south of Nova Scotia. Again, we're talking here just in theory. And this is going to lead me to another issue. With regards to the state of the tropics going forward. One of the things that I thought was very interesting was seeing Barry forming in the middle of July, given the fact that we have this weak El Nino. The reason why I say that is that certainly in an El Nino year, you could have a tropical storm develop, in whenever they developed. I mean, they could develop in June, then July, whatever. But I thought it was kind of interesting to see this system develop when it did. And I think it's part of it is responding to the fact that the El Nino, the weak El Nino, continues to weaken. And this is the global look of water temperatures relative to normal taken on July 11th. And you'll notice where the equator is, and you've got these sort of little eddies of cooler than average temperatures. This is at best a weak El Nino, and looking at where we've been and where we're going with these water temperatures, we're seeing this El Nino, I think, weaken further. Now, this is back on May the 13th. The ocean water temperatures in the tropical Pacific. You can see where on this map where the below normal temperatures that are extending from South America northward, not quite to the equator. So where you have the eastern Pacific ocean water temperatures in May were pretty much running above average. On the Atlantic side, in May, you had below average temperatures through the Caribbean, extending out into parts of the western flank of the tropical Atlantic, and also in parts of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, take a look at where we are now. That was on May the 13th. Now look at on July the 11th. We are seeing that, the temperatures in the Pacific are running a little bit above average, but only by about a degree or so. Maybe a few pockets a little bit warmer than that. And you do have these cold eddies along the equator. When you go back and look at the El Nino year back in 16, and you'll see that the Pacific was, absolutely on fire that year, where we had anomalies running 5 degrees Celsius above. Okay, it's nothing like that. This is at best a weak El Nino that seems to be getting weaker. Also, notice the big difference, and this is something that from last year that's important. As far as the tropical Atlantic was concerned, we spent a lot of time in June and back into July where the tropical Atlantic was running a couple of degrees below average. We're looking at water temperatures now that are average to a little bit above average throughout much of the tropical Atlantic and throughout the subtropical Atlantic. That below average area in the Caribbean is gone. It's a little bit above, it's near or a little bit above average by about half a degree Celsius or so. And the Gulf of Mexico is now running above average by about a half a degree to a degree. And the subtropical Atlantic is running, I would say, probably between 1 and 2 degrees above average. And we got some big anomalies being analyzed right along 40 degrees north, probably near where the jet stream, just north of where the Gulf Stream makes that right-hand turn, where we're seeing some very, very big anomalies of almost 4 and 5 degrees Celsius above average, sitting off the coast of Long Island and Cape Cod. So that'll be interesting to see if that holds on. But the bottom line is that the El Nino is continuing to deteriorate and weakening, and the Atlantic ocean water temperature profile is looking like it should look, on an average year, and perhaps maybe, nudge that just a little bit above as far as the water temperatures are concerned. And remember, there are all other factors that are in play here. It's not just the ocean water temperatures, the upper air winds, how much wind shear do we have going on. One of the things I pulled from the old GFS model run, and I took it from day 7 to 16, just to give you the idea of the fact that you still have this troughing in the east, but you'll notice over the next 2 weeks a gradual expansion of higher pressures across the Atlantic from off the southeast coast straight back to the Azores. So the Azores Bermuda High is strengthening here in the next couple of weeks, and that is also going to strengthen the flow from east to west from the African coast across the Atlantic. So there's an absence of troughing in the Atlantic here in the longer term, which would, I think, favor for the a westerly component of motion for a longer period of time. Another thing we want to just take a look at is with respect to the conditions in the tropics, and of course we've been monitoring the impact of the Saharan dust that keeps coming off. That usually tends to die off once we start to see the rain in Africa, the monsoon shifting northward, and you're starting to see signs of that. If you look at the satellite picture here on the lower right, you're starting to pick up disturbances, and they're coming a little bit further to the north. So you're going to see them push a little bit further north in the next couple of weeks. So that'll help us figure out, what kind of a Cape Verde season are we going to have. To me, the extent of the Saharan dust seems to be a bit less than it was a couple of weeks ago. Also, not seeing, at the moment anyway, sometimes you have these large upper lows that are way up in the atmosphere that creates strong wind shear conditions across the subtropical and tropical Atlantic. Right now, I'm not seeing that. That doesn't necessarily mean it won't be there in a couple of weeks, but for now, it seems like that part of the atmosphere is a bit more relaxed. And hurricanes like conditions, upper atmospheric conditions of light winds. They don't like those strong winds in the upper atmosphere because they impede development. So I guess in summary, the way I would just look at this is the fact that, to me, it seems that the gears are doing what they're supposed to do during this time of year. Everything seems to be on course, and that we're probably going to see. I wouldn't be shocked if we get another named storm before the month of July is over with, and then we should see activity rev up as it usually does through August and into September. All things being equal. And let's keep an eye on the upper air situation with regards to the overall jet stream profile as far as North America is concerned, because that certainly is going to be a determinant as far as what the tracks are going to be. Okay, let's see. Chris Alley, nice to see you on board, and Scott Briller, the chairman. I know he was on earlier. I'm not seeing him here now on late, but big hellos to everybody. Tropics in the east, Jason Barry would favor homegrown storms, depending on. It would depend on a few other things, but if the troughing in the east means that cold fronts would be dropping down like they have been doing down into the mid-Atlantic states, and you get these frontal boundaries that are laying off the southeast coast, yeah, that could mean for some homegrown possibilities, if you want to call them that. Yeah, I wouldn't be a shocker. The one what we saw with Barry was really, the bottom part of the bottom part of that the frontal boundary broke off and moved into the northeastern Gulf of Mexico over the very warm waters there. That development, by the way, some people were making a big deal about that. That is not that unusual. Believe it or not, it's not that unusual. It does happen from time to time. I don't know that it gets the amount of attention it does, but I can, you go back from when I first started in weather, and just, especially back in the 70s and 80s, where there seemed to be more instances of upper lows that dropped down off the mid-Atlantic coast and wound up becoming tropical storms. This usually happens when you get into August and September, but if it was going to do it, this one picked the right spot by going into the Northeast Gulf. Johnny Quest, I do agree with you. Any one single storm could certainly drop down enough rain to cause some flash flooding issues. So yeah, you have to, I'll put the big asterisk up there when it comes to that. Those rainfall amounts locally could certainly be 2 or 3 times what's being forecast by WPC, depending on the strength of any particular thunderstorms. Absolutely. Air quality issues, David Schwartz, certainly go along with all of this, and naturally with hot weather the way it is, this is not the time to decide you're going to run a marathon, go marathon training in the middle of the day. A little common, folks have to exercise common sense, which I think these days seems to be a bit lacking. James, NASCAR fan, nice to see you on board. Jason Schaefer, also nice to see you as always. And Johnny Quest, who's shooting for 110 inches of rain where he is in the mountains of Western Virginia. All right, so I think that pretty well covers it. I haven't done a long live stream in so long. I needed my batteries recharged, and I think I did a pretty good job recharging them. So let me just highlight a couple of things. Patreon members, I put up a post about the whole hurricane setup, and you can read that part of it as just kind of going into what I just explained, and it matches up pretty well. So take a look at that, and also there will be a weather in 10 tomorrow for Patreon members only. I'm going to get that going. I was on vacation up in the Allegheny Mountains. The reception where I was, remember back beforehand, I wasn't 100% sure. Well, let me tell you, the reception for internet was about as minimal as it could be. I had to go to a specific spot about a mile from my cabin in order to get a signal. And if I was by myself, it was fine. But if there were other people there, I struggled to get what I was able to get on there on my website, and also getting Weather at 5 done. Normally, it would take me literally less than a minute, or sometimes even less than 10 seconds to get videos to upload to YouTube or to Facebook. I was sitting there waiting for sometimes well over an hour to get a simple 5-minute video to upload. So it was a real struggle, and it actually forced me to take some much needed downtime. So that was a good thing. But now we're going to get back to normal, so everything will get back to how we usually do things, which is the longer live streams in the evening times, the shorter live streams in the early parts of the day. Patreon members, you get your weather in 10. We are also going to have our regular website posts, so everything is working well as far as that is concerned. For those of you who are interested in getting a more complete weather experience, if you're not on my Patreon platform, this is my subscription platform. It's just $2 a month. There's a link on the chat, the live chat right now, and there's also a link on the descriptor to this live stream, or if you're watching this on a replay, the descriptor to this video. Also, an easy way to support my channel is if you shop on Amazon. We're an affiliate, we're part of Amazon's program, participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated sites. And Reaver, yes, here is the link to that. So look, if you shop on Amazon, you get your stuff. Amazon out of their throws me back a little bit of coin out of their pocket, so I can get some fishing lures and a few cigars, and I'm a happy camper. It's an easy, simple way to support what I'm doing, and it doesn't cost you 1 extra cent. So I appreciate those of you who have done that in the past, and those of you who are thinking about doing it. The link is up there, and as I said, it's also on the descriptor to this video. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't already, the updates are in the hands of Google and Apple, so we're just waiting to hear. There will be an update coming out shortly on my weather app, which is free, and you can download that on Google Play or on the App Store. It will be, the update will be where you don't have to put in your location every time you go to look for your local forecast or your local radar. It will also, it'll go there right off the bat, and that's one of a couple of things that will be new, and that's absolutely free. And by the way, on the Amazon Prime, on that link, you don't have to buy what's on there. Just go use the search bar, and if you bookmark it, you could use it in the future. Just use the search bar for whatever it is you're looking for, and it might give you an easy way in to Amazon Prime in case you're having trouble and this Amazon is too busy to let you in. Do I have any theories on why the models missed so badly on Barry's rainfall totals? The 15 to 25 inch forecast by Joe Bastardi never came to pass. Look, I don't know I don't know what he did in terms of a forecast. I don't follow him. Okay, so I just basically get what everybody tells me. Look, we are in a world where everything is taken to, as I said at the beginning, in case you missed it, Reaver, I ranted a little bit about this. It was a kind rant. It wasn't a crazy rant. But we are at a point now where every drizzle is epic. Everything is being wrapped up into hysteria, okay, with regards to these tropical systems, severe weather, heat, humidity, and all the rest of it. The rainfalls were what they were. I mean, certainly there was significant flooding, and there probably will be additional flooding. This was a little bit different from what happened, say, with Harvey and what happened with Florence. Those systems came during the peak time of hurricane season, and the stalling process, especially in Harvey, 4 days with access to a Category 4 hurricane with feeder bands coming out of the Gulf of Mexico for 4 days. And Florence, the same thing, was a 4, weakens to a 1, has this sort of endless feed coming out of the Gulf, and partial circulation over the water. I think that is a big difference here with regards to what happened with Barry, in that with the low center in circulation, moving inland and gaining some distance away from the coast. The impact of a straight feed of tropical moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, yeah, it's there, but it's not of the same magnitude that it was with the Florence. It's not of the same magnitude that it was with Harvey. So perhaps the forecasters kind of, I don't know. I have to go back and I wanted to review what the Hurricane Center did, because I was not able to follow each one of their forecast cycles given my limited internet access. But so I want to see exactly what they were forecasting in terms of the rainfall out of this. So I'll probably hit on this a bit more tomorrow. But look, you got to get used to the fact that you're just going to get these hysterical forecasts every time it drizzles, and that's just the way it's going to be. All right, folks. So we'll leave it at that at the moment. This is a pretty good start to the new week, and we'll see if Mr. Rayo wants to do the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight on Facebook. So if we do it, it'll be at 9:15. He and I, between days off and everything else, this week is the first full week that we've been together in quite a while. So maybe we'll do a show tonight. All right, have a great night, everybody. I'm starting to get hungry. I got to get dinner. Oh, I wanted to mention, by the way, if you ever get to Western New York, I got to write this stuff down because my mind, I forget about this. But if you ever get to Western New York, particularly along the southern tier in the Alleghenies, I was 30 minutes from Jamestown, and I went to the I Love Lucy, the Lucy Desi Museum there, which, if you're a fan of 50s television, it's a must-see. It really was, it was something. The old I Love Lucy sets were there. There was a lot of technical stuff that I found really interesting in how the show was put together, plus everything else that went with it. Lucille Ball's hometown was Jamestown. Even took a trip to the cemetery to see her grave where she's buried. And the other thing I did was I went to Niagara Falls, which was my first time there, and it is just astounding. If you've never been, go. And I did the boat, the hornblower on the Canadian side, which is there's a lot more going on the Canadian side than there is on the U.S. side. But on the Canadian side, took the hornblower, went up to the horseshoe. It was just amazing. It's very, very overwhelming to see the beauty of Niagara Falls, the horseshoe, and then the smaller falls that are off to the side. Just absolutely crazy. The Maid of the Mist was on the American side, and Okieji, yes, the Maid of the Mist, but we did it on the Canadian side, which was the hornblower. All right, have a great night, everybody. Maybe we'll see you later on the Joe and Joe Weather Show.